Hello, welcome, good evening, and bienvenue. Thank you so much for joining the closing session of the 2021 Geneva Trilogue. We have had a number of great sessions throughout the day, and today, now we are concluding with the last half an hour, the Geneva Trilogue, before we go into Open Geneva. Before I introduce the four distinguished speakers for this evening's closing session, allow me to give you a brief overview of what we have heard from some of the snapshots, since not everybody was able to tune into all of the sessions. My name is Jonas Hertler. I work for UNITAR, the UN Institute for Training and Research. And we are one of the two co-organizers together with University of Geneva of the 2021 Geneva Trialogue. So throughout the day, we started this morning with the welcome session at 8:30 to this afternoon with the last session. We focused on the topic of open innovation. And I think the rector of University of Geneva, Yves Lückiger, pointed us this morning in the welcome session to this question that we all dealt with in many of the sessions, and that is, we need new solutions to tackle the challenges underlying these sustainable development goals. This is the third iteration of the Geneva Trilogue. So we've had two other iterations online and also on the ground. And the sustainable development goals were always with us. But this time around, we looked at the question of open innovation. And when I listened into many of the sessions and many of the great speakers throughout the day, one of the main takeaways I took from the variety of inputs and the variety of angles of looking at this issue was certainly a point of making the case for collaboration and breaking silos to overcome some of the challenges that we're dealing with of not having enough speed and impact to actually achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030, given current pace. So we heard, for example, on the topic of open innovation in the UN Geneva ecosystem, the need to tackle not just at innovation from a technological perspective, but also at how do we actually implement breaking the silos and bringing different teams together, different agencies together, different stakeholders together with the UN. So that was one big topic talked about in this topic of, or in the session around open innovation in the UN Geneva ecosystem. We also heard about new forms of working with the young generation, the topic of internships, hybrid internships, online internships, engaging youth in many different ways was one of the topics discussed right in the afternoon at about 3 o'clock today. And then we had one very interesting session, I thought, at about 4, where we looked at different ways of how educational systems need to be adapted. And we had two speakers who made the point that the current way educational systems are aligned is actually is sustaining a paradigm that is by now outdated, and we need new ways of aligning and a new paradigm for our educational system. And one of the speakers, the speaker from the OECD, Andreas Schleicher, who many of you know from the PISA studies, made the point that it is bridging capacity that we need to enable our students, but also the teachers to be enabled with. The session went much further, but this is some of the essence of his argument in that session. So collaboration, overcoming some of the silos, was at the heart of many of the discussions that we heard from today. We will certainly not come to full conclusions, but it is now my distinguished pleasure to introduce to you 4 of the final speakers for this closing session. And we will hear from some of the individuals who either have spoken at today's sessions or whose projects or whose input was already referenced in today's session. So I'll now introduce all speakers in the order that they come up, and then I'll hand over for each one of them for about 5 minutes before we conclude today's Geneva Trilogue. So we will first hear from Ángel Cabrera. He is the president of Georgia Tech. He joins us from the US East Coast. So Ángel, for you, it's still midday while we are here concluding the day, but you're also speaking to us in your role as the chair of the University Global Coalition, which was one of the co-organizers of today's events. We will then go to Colombe Barin. She is the project officer for citizen science at the European Commission and the Crowd for SDG project, that you are the focal point for was the point of discussion in several of the sessions today. We will then hear from Stéphane Berthet, Vice Rector of the University of Geneva, and without much explanation, you are, of course, one of the co-hosts of the Geneva Trialogue, so a very important partner here. And then we will hear from Nicolas Nigli. He is the Deputy Secretary General of the Republic and State of Geneva, and Nicolas was also part of one of the panels and can also reflect a little bit on that. So with that said, I'm happy to hand over to Ángel Cabrera. Ángel, the floor is yours.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jonas, and thank you for bringing us together and for continuing to lead the way in hosting these absolutely essential conversations about how the world must come together to address the biggest issues of our time. And right in front of me, I have this little sticker. Yesterday, I was happy to get my first shot of the vaccine at Georgia Tech, and I got this little sticker that says, "Hey, I got my vaccine. I'm very excited." But the reason why I'm sharing it is this is a huge example of human ingenuity, of global collaboration, of how when we were under a pretty severe public health threat, the world came together. The vaccine I got yesterday is the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, developed by Turkish immigrants in Germany in partnership with a American multinational led by another European immigrant, and based on the research from labs in Europe and the United States and around the world for years to understand messenger RNA. You know, when as an old saying goes, the prospect of hanging concentrates one's mind. When we were threatened, technology, science, global collaboration really deliver the solutions. And so as much as I, like all of you, want to forget 2020 and hopefully move on in the next few months, there are some profound lessons from the terrible year of COVID that I hope stick with us and that are essential as we think about how we're going to address problems that go beyond COVID, the problems that are articulated in the Sustainable Development Goals. So last year, while we were here at Georgia Tech, just to put it in context, we're one of the largest technological universities in the United States. We're a leading research university, over $1 billion in research grants every year, covering all sorts of aspects in science and technology. So last year, in the middle of COVID, I was a new president coming back to Georgia Tech, where I came initially years ago as a graduate student. We were working on a new strategic plan. And COVID made us think very profoundly about why we exist and what is our purpose as an organization and our values and what is it we're trying to achieve going forward. And very quickly, the Sustainable Development Goals became the most useful framework that we could put our hands around. It's a good way to look at the SDGs is sort of a strategic plan for the planet. Well, how about aligning our own strategic plan with that? If we aspire as a university to make a difference, to have an impact, to develop leaders who advance technology and improve the human condition, then shouldn't we find inspiration in that articulation of what those big problems are and make sure that our research and our education gets us there? Part of the reason why we zeroed in on the Sustainable Development Goals for our own strategic plan was the inspiration that we had from a network of universities that we have put together over the past 2 years, initiated, by the way, in conversations in Geneva in a prior edition of the Trialogue, and including the University of Geneva and other leading organizations around the world, from Mexico and Colombia to Spain we really have partners all over the world, where we've come together to say, okay, let's join forces to learn from one another, to encourage one another, to share best practices, to partner in driving academic institutions to really be instruments to resolve the Sustainable Development Goals. In very practical terms, these collaborations are translating into a whole host of new initiatives. whether it's in the form of conferences that we're hosting together, exchange of best practices, or new courses. At Georgia Tech, for example, we run a vertically integrated project focused on the SDGs. We have a virtual mobility project with students from different universities that we're doing in partnership also with the University of Geneva, where students from different countries are learning about the SDGs together and are working in projects that are relevant locally in their place, but at the same time, sharing experiences with students from around the world, both developing a global mindset, but also being very grounded on the issues that they face at the local level. So this new coalition, that in a way, in a prior life, I had the pleasure to work with Jonas and folks at the UN Global Compact to create a network of business schools that was committed to bringing concepts of global responsibility to business education. And hundreds of business schools around the world signed up and now have created a network. And that network has really inspired many change makers within those business schools to drive change in those organizations. What we're trying to do is something similar, but this time around, very strongly linked to the SDGs and involving not just business schools, but the entirety of our universities. So that's what we're doing. We're inviting other institutions to come and join us. We have partnered with the Rockefeller Foundation, with Brookings, to try to use different models to elicit dialogue between ourselves, but also as universities, to assume our roles as anchor institutions, our conveners of relationships in each of our regions, to put through new solutions for that hopefully new innovations, the theme of this conference, right? To drive open innovation, to scale up open innovation, to find solutions that work around the world. So that's why we have the University Global Coalition, and I'm very, very excited to say that the rector of University of Geneva, Yves Flückiger, and I have agreed that this conference should be one of our, maybe the flagship events that we have every year, and maybe turn this into really a forum where this form of open innovation and exchange becomes the norm going forward. Next year's Trialogue will focus on innovation and hybrid education. All of us in universities around the world are trying to decide what is it from the year of COVID that we want to keep. Not everything we have learned to use technology in new ways. We have learned to educate, to live, to work in different ways. So it's very, very interesting, the question of what are the things that we have learned that actually we want to keep. Anyway, thank you for your time and for listening. Thank you for the leadership in setting up this conference. And I'll turn it back over to Jonas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ángel Cabrera. This was great. And of course, the commitment from the University Global Coalition to continue the Geneva Trialogue is something we really are keen to promote and to support. Now, next is Colombe Warren. She is with the European Commission. And Colombe, you can introduce yourself and also the Crowd for SDG project, of course, in your remarks. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Jonas. So I'm happy to be here from Brussels. I'm here working at the European Commission, and more precisely in the research department. The unit in which I am involved is running a program which is called Science with and for Society. And I think it's put together all the things that also Ángel said about bridges and putting together different sectors and entities together, which I really like in the projects that I am monitoring. Because, for example, we have, of course, key universities, important international organizations. This is the case in Crowd for SDG that I represent today, being the project officer. So it is led by the University of Geneva. It has as partners UNITAR and the CERN from Geneva, but also the University of Paris, the Politecnico di Milano, and the Spanish National Research Council. So all together, it's really a project that I particularly like, and that it fits totally in today's presentation. It had a session just before at 5 o'clock that I attended, of course. And it shows how citizen science can help to assess the SDGs. And I think those are two particular very important parts that we have all to tackle, and that the European Commission is putting funding in order to tackle the challenges of tomorrow. So today marks indeed the end of what is the first innovation cycle, because indeed, coming back to what is said about COVID, what is interesting for me is that it's the first time I had a project, Code for SDG, that began totally online, because it began in May, on the 1st of May exactly, and impossible to travel to Geneva. So all partners had to meet in Zoom. And I must say that it has been, of course, a challenge, but also I think an advantage, because I have seen during all these months how it could bring worldwide participation. And in this specific innovation cycle that I will briefly describe, that are gathering students and researchers from 16 to 26 years old, so really young people. They are coming from all over the continents. And that's also something, and I wanted to insist on that the European Commission is very keen to have, not only, of course, European countries, but people from all over the world, which is the case, China, Africa. And this specific first innovation cycle was targeting a very important SDG, which is water resilience. And the whole teams, so there were 200 students and 20 teams in total, were pitching about this important challenge, I must say. And two teams have won after a series of pitches and sessions. I was honored also to attend one, and I was impressed by the level, I must say, of the presentations of these young people. And two are selected, and they will be helped by the University of Geneva SDG Accelerator in order, of course, to make this project come true. And what I also really much like in this project, in these cycles that the Code for SDG is developing, is that it brings also together academia, but also private sector. And Goodwall is one of the partners in this project, and it helped very much to target and to identify and to involve young people from all over the world. Two teams have won, as I said, but the other will also be invited in Geneva at the Geneva event next Monday. So I really hope, I wanted to insist about the importance for us about open innovation, of course, for the European Commission, SDGs, which is totally in line with the Green Deal. As you know, Ursula von der Leyen, our president, has launched this big strategy for the years to come. And it's, I don't know if some of you attended the German presidency conference last October in Berlin about citizen science and SDGs, but it all, I think, put a sense together to have this project, Code for SDG, developing very important elements, and also I think for me educating and putting together young people, which is also a target group that we really favor in this project. So I hope it's the first time Code for SDG, of course it just began in May, attended this trialogue. I hope Code for SDG could continue, because I'm pretty sure and I'm confident it will have great outcomes in the coming years for this project. Thank you very much. I leave it now to you, Jonas.
Thank you so much. And of course, we will also cheer on the Crowd for SDG project and help to support it going forward. With that, I'm handing over now to Stéphane Berthet with the University of Geneva. Stéphane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonas. So it's a pleasure for me to be here for this closing session. And I first would like to thank the organizer of this Geneva trialogue, which is a success. And it's really remarkable how much has been achieved in the 5 years since the first Geneva dialogue, where we discuss the broad issue of knowledge for the SDGs. And at that time, academia and the private sector did not yet fully understand the significance of the SDGs. And then with the second Geneva trialogue in 2019, we discussed the more specific challenge of scaling education for the SDGs. And there were a great diversity of solutions on display, but still little coordination between main actors. And it has been encouraging to see at today's Geneva Trial, as we focused on the issue of open innovation for the SDGs, that the academic sector, the international organization, and the private sector collaborating. This was nicely illustrated by the European Crowd for SDG project that has been just mentioned. And for the University of Geneva, it is important to play a key role in this connecting academia globally with the international organization here in Geneva, who are our neighbors and also already close partners. So for many projects which are running. And we are doing this with the League of European Research Universities, the LERU, as well as with the University Global Coalition. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank Angel Cabrera for agreeing to have the University Global Coalition adopt the Geneva Trialogue as is its flagship event for connecting academia and the international organization, and to also to our UNITAR partners represented here by Johannes, for agreeing to work with us to repeat this event on an annual basis going forward in connection with the annual Open Geneva Festival. As was discussed today, University of Geneva is developing new means of academic collaboration with international Geneva, such as a successful Geneva Science Policy Interface, which was highlighted during this trialogue, and as well the recently established Geneva Science Diplomacy Anticipator. And thanks to the Geneva Tsingwa initiative, named GTI, a partnership between the University of Geneva and the University of Tsinghua on SDG education, students have become the driving force for open innovation projects with international organization and non-governmental organization in Geneva through novel internship programs that were also discussed today. And the GTI has also developed a new chair space for open innovation for SDGs in the heart of the International Geneva. And today we also inaugurated a link with a new SDG solution space in Beijing with our partner there, the Tsinghua University. So the Open Geneva Festival, which is kicking off in its fourth editions today, is another example of a platform for open innovation that our university helps to launch. And thanks in part to support from the Swiss Development and Cooperation Agency, we are co co-designing large-scale hackathon festivals for SDGs with a range of partners in Asia. As we bring this dialogue to a close and launch the Open Geneva Festival, I want also to thank in particular the State of Geneva, represented here by Mr. Nicolas Nicli, for supporting this regional event since its launch in 2017. So the Open Geneva has not only inspired the citizens of Geneva, but it has already inspired the citizens of the world. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Stefan. And with that, I'll hand over to Nicolas Nicli, who you just mentioned. He is with the Republic and State of Geneva. Nicolas, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jonas, and thanks also to Stefan Berthet for his very kind words. It's a great pleasure indeed to be with you tonight. Minister Nathalie Fontanet, in charge of finance, but also economic development and international Geneva, was very eager indeed to be with us tonight and to add her voice to the concert of praise for this year's trialogue. Unfortunately, due to the two circumstances that are pandemic related, she could not be with us all, but she sends you all her very best regards. She also kindly asked me to say a few words on behalf of the Geneva government, which I'm very honored to do. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today's exchanges have been very rich and impressive in potential. So many people with wonderful expertise and a willingness to contribute and to build a more sustainable, inclusive and prosperous world have spent some of their valuable time exchanging thoughts and giving us a privileged insight into the most impactful work they are doing day in, day out. We would like to thank you all for your efforts. Geneva is very fortunate to be able to count on your energy and your dedication. Clearly, if there was one lesson that I would draw from today's dense program, it is that communication, collaboration, and innovation between academia, international organizations, and global governance, and the private sector cannot be more timely. The new normal must indeed be collaborative. Silos must urgently and once and for all be broken, and collective intelligence and open innovation fostered if we want to implement the SDGs and to tackle the significant global challenges we are facing. We must, in other terms, not just walk the talk, that is too slow. We must indeed run the talk if we want to match the urgency of the challenge with the appropriateness of the response. Geneva is eager to lead the way. Initiatives such as building bridges, which brings together sustainable finance and global governance, would simply not have been initiated without the leadership of the canton. Our commitment to innovation for good brings together purpose and profit, shareholder and stakeholder capitalism. We strive, in other terms, to be the best, not just in the world, but for the world. Such a commitment does also manifest in partnerships such as the one we have developed with Open Geneva, which is co-organizing the Geneva Trialogue, as well as the Open Innovation Festival starting today. The various events of the association put collective intelligence at the service of innovation and brings together innovators from all of the fields and all backgrounds during their hackathons. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I really hope we can generate new dynamic forms of collaboration between global governance and the rest of Geneva's many assets: vibrant business and financial center, academic powerhouse, and pulsating civil society representation. Geneva being a local global hub, or depending where you sit, a global local hub, par excellence, building innovation bridges between the two sides of the lake is of vital importance for this system, for this ecosystem, as it is for the world. International Geneva represents more than 10% of the economy and jobs in the canton. So if we can translate some of the open innovation and collaboration that international organizations are championing into new startups and NGOs, everybody will benefit. It is clearly not just about Geneva, it's about the world. We support initiatives like the Trialogue and Open Geneva because, as was stated in the welcome address by our Secretary of State for Education, Research and Innovation, Martina Hirayama, the spirit of Geneva, l'esprit de Genève, is a big part of how Switzerland supports open dialogue and peaceful development between the nations of the world. I'd like to conclude by inviting all Trialogue participants to check the rich and varied program for this year's online Open Geneva Festival and welcome them to join some of the over 20 hackathons and workshops that are planned over the next 10 days. Really rich, really exciting program. There must be something for everybody. Hello world, welcome to Geneva. And I guess the Open Geneva Festival is now going to be launched very soon, I guess, with the next speaker. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and thank you so much for having me. Jonas, I give you back the floor.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nicolas, and thanks to all the speakers. So it leaves me with saying a few words of thanks before handing over then to make the official introduction of the Open Geneva, which we will launch then right away, and at the same time close the Geneva Trialogue today's event. So thanks so much, first of all, to everybody at the University of Geneva for initiating and supporting the Geneva Trialogue and the Open Geneva Festival. Thanks to the Canton of Geneva, the Swiss Development Corporation, SDC, and all the partners for your support. Thanks to the University Global Coalition, which we just heard from, to take on the Geneva Trialogue as its flagship event going forward, of course, with the great and important input from the existing partners. Tackling the topic of hybrid learning and innovations for the SDGs will provide the theme for next year, and we will then see more themes to come in the next iteration. Thanks also to the speaker here from the European Commission and the support through the Crowd for SDG project. Last but not least, thanks of course here to all our distinguished speakers at the closing session, and of course all the speakers throughout the day. And of course to more than 500 participants who registered and participated throughout the day in many of the sessions that we heard from. At the very last, I do want to also give a special shout out to the team that was organizing today's event. This was all online, and specifically Aphrodite, who works in the UNITAR team, but used to be a master student of the Geneva Trialogue initiative, which we also heard from. She did a great job together with a core team of organizing and pulling together so many different panels. So thanks to the organizing team, virtual applause to you. Now this brings me to close the official part of the Geneva Trialogue, but as Nicolas just mentioned, this is not over. You can all participate in Open Geneva, which will take place as of tomorrow for the next 10 days. And for that, I have the pleasure now to give to Thomas Merlat, the president of Open Geneva, a 1-minute introduction of what to expect. So Thomas, before we then officially close, please do take the floor and let us know what the participants can participate in over the next 10 days. So Thomas, over to you.
Thank you, Jonas. Thank you to all panelists. Thank you to all attendees of the Geneva Trialogue. First thing I want to say, we have been very impressed and inspired by all this production and contribution by people from all over the world. Open Geneva is an association. It's a festival that in a way leads some kind of a spirit of hackathons for the SDGs, but we are always very eager to actually see what is going on all over the world and to enrich ourselves and also for our communities. So that's the first thing I wanted to say on the closing remark for me for the Geneva Trialogue. And the second point I want to say is that Nicolas Snigly told about 20 events. Actually, we got 12 more over 24 hours. So that's the nice thing with actually online events. People can show up very late. So we are at 32 events that are going to be that are starting from today. And I think I really, again, as every panelist has said before, we really encourage you to have a look and to participate. It's online. You don't even need to take a plane and get a visa to come to Geneva. This is amazing. And yeah, I mean, I would just finish by saying that the Festival Open Geneva is now open for its edition 2021. Thank you to everyone and have a good night.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Thomas, and thanks to all the speakers. This concludes the official part of the Geneva Trialogue. Have a good rest of your day, good evening, good night to wherever you are. Stay safe and